Hi. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you've never been here before. Today we have a little bit of a different setting. I'm just a little bit closer to my bookshelves because we are going to be talking about books today, more specifically books that I've recently bought. If you've seen my past book videos, you know that I'm always ranting and raving about utilizing your local library because the library tries its best to make reading accessible for everyone. I know not everyone has a library where they live, but if you have one, I suggest trying to utilize that resource as much as possible. But with that said and done, I do still buy books because sometimes 2 weeks is not long enough for me to read a book. I find that if I'm liking a book and the due date is coming up and I just do not think I'm going to finish the book in time, especially if I want to annotate it or highlight certain things, I'll just buy the book. Sometimes I like to use the library as kind of like a little trial to see if I am liking a book before I invest my money into it. And sometimes I'm like, I like that book enough, but not enough to buy it. So I try my best to buy books that I really think I'm going to enjoy, or more specifically, books that I know I want to annotate. So with that, I also want to say, if you guys want to follow me and see what books I'm reading, I do not have a Goodreads. I use storygraph. It is like women owned and kind of like smaller than Goodreads, but it gives you a lot of stats, which I really like. And it gives you updates on like, if you, like my goal this year is 50 books. So it'll tell you, oh, you're 2 books behind your goal, or you're 3 books ahead of your goal, which is what I am at right now. So the link for that will be in the description below if you want to follow me on there. But let's go ahead and get started with the book haul. I went to Barnes & Noble and I went to like my local bookstore. So my local bookstore is pretty small. It's mainly a children's bookstore and they have a very select number of adult books, but they do have really good ones. So I went there second. So first, let's start off with the Barnes & Noble book haul. First, we're going to start off with Martyr. This is by Kaveh Akbar. I'm gonna be completely honest, I don't really know what this is about. I've heard so many people on BookTube talk about this. Cameron Slaggy Book Club, Jack Edwards, and the rating for this on Goodreads and Storygraph is super high. I'm gonna read the back of this, but again, even when I read the description of it, I was like, in the bookstore, I don't know what this is really about, but it's about this young man named Cyrus. He's kind of grappling with an inheritance of violence and loss. His mother's plane was shot down over the skies of the Persian Gulf in a senseless accident, and his father's life in America was circumscribed by his work killing chickens at a factory farm in Midwest. Cyrus is a drunk, an addict, and a poet whose obsession with martyrs leads him to examine the mysteries of his past toward an uncle who rode through Iranian battlefield stress as the angel of death to inspire and comfort the dying, and towards his mother through a painting discovered in a Brooklyn art gallery that suggests she may not have been who or what she seemed. That's what it says on the back. I'm sure you're probably like, so what is this about even? So I've heard other people describe it as like, it's about this guy named Cyrus. He's dealt with a lot of loss and trauma in his life, and he's kind of intrigued by the idea of martyrs, being a martyr, and he believes that his mom was kind of a martyr, like her death was, made her a martyr. And he sits down with this person who is about to die, like this famous artist or something like that, hosts something. I'm I'm telling you, like the way I'm describing it, you're like, what is going on? This artist, I guess, this very famous artist in New York, hosts some sort of event where people will sit down with her and tell their story, talk to her about anything they want to talk about because she's gonna die. And she, I don't know, that's just what she wants to do with like her last few moments on Earth. And so this guy, Cyrus, decides to go and talk to her. And I guess it's just really profound. Again, do we really know what this is about? No. But I'm gonna go ahead and read the first line because I was like, okay, plot, I don't understand. Everyone's been saying that it is so well written. I've not seen someone give this less than 5 stars, which is crazy to think about. I'm gonna go ahead and read the first sentence. This is the first sentence, and I was like, whoa. Maybe it was that Cyrus had done the wrong drugs in the right order, or the right drugs in the wrong order. But when God finally spoke back to him after 27 years of silence, what Cyrus wanted more than anything else was a do-over. Whoa. I thought that was just amazing. Also, this cover is so cute. Can this focus on the cover? Maybe not. Okay, whatever. That's what I got. I'm really excited about it, but also really nervous because it's been talked very highly. Next, I got The White Book by Han Kang. Han Kang. This is translated from Korean, but she is the author of The Vegetarian. If you guys are around the booktube neck of the woods, you will know that The Vegetarian is kind of like a controversial book. I won't describe The Vegetarian because I didn't get that book. We got this book instead, but this is described as a meditation on color as well as an attempt to make sense of the death of a sister who died in her mother's arms just a few hours after she was born. The White Book is a letter to her sister, offering a multi-layered exploration of color and its absence, and of the tenacity and fragility of the human spirit. So I believe this is non-fiction. I'm not sure, but it's kind of just like little, I don't even know if this is like poems. Like, I guess they're all just like little poems, little small things, but they all have to do with the color white. Is white a color? I don't know, but it just sounds really sad. And I've heard this is actually really, really good. I think a YouTuber that I watched eons ago, but she doesn't make booktube videos anymore and privated a lot of her booktube videos for some reason. She read this book reading, I think, someone from Blackpink's favorite books, and this was one of them. So I am intrigued. Next, I got Blood Test by Charles Baxter. I'm gonna be completely honest, again, I don't really know what this is about. I don't know what it is with me. I feel like I read somewhere a different description than the one that is in here, but this has been on my TBR, and also this cover is just spectacular. I'm obsessed with it, so if anything, I just wanted it for the cover. The description of this says, in this fresh take on love and trouble in America, Brock Hobson, an insurance salesman and Sunday school teacher, and hilarious relatable protagonist, submits to a predictive blood test. Charles Baxter is a master storyteller, brings us on a I guess it's described as like a comedy. I read somewhere a different description. Let me see if I can find it, because it's called Blood Test. So it's about, when I read a different description, and it kind of gave me the impression that it was more like odd and peculiar, but it's called Blood Test, semicolon, a comedy. So maybe I don't know what it's about. Okay, here we go. This has a better description on Goodreads. This is a comedic novel about a divorced Midwestern dad who takes a cutting-edge medical test and learns that he has a predisposition to murder. What? Like, what does that even mean? What does that mean? See, that description's way better than whatever the fuck they put on the cover. I'm sorry. Less is more sometimes, you know? Anyways, I'm excited to read that, and again, the cover kind of sold me because it just, what is that little rat doing in there? I don't know. You tell me. The last thing I got from Barnes & Noble is Dad Camp by Evan S. Porter. This one sounds really cute. Past me probably wouldn't pick up a book like this, but I'm just kind of in the zone of just reading like cutesy cutesy books like this. I don't know why. Like, part of me has had some sort of inkling to read romance books, which is crazy, but I love that I'm expanding my horizons because that just opens up a whole new world. Okay, so this one is about a loving dad and his 11-year-old daughter and their last chance to bond before he loses her to teenage girlhood entirely. His daughter, Avery, he can kind of see her, you know, transforming into like a preteen who doesn't like spending time with their parents. And the dad, John, is desperate to have like a relationship with her like they did when she was younger. So they go to this like summer camp and it seems like it's going to be a fun time, but they're just surrounded by like weird toxic dads who can't seem to get along and everything's kind of cringy and forced. All the activities are forced and he thinks like this camp director has it out for him. It just sounds so cute. It sounds like I'm gonna cry. And I haven't heard anything about it, which is kind of how I found Blood Test. I was just kind of looking up like weird, like I'll go on Goodreads with a book that I'll like and I'll look at books similar to the one that I like. That's how I found Blood Test. But I do like going into books not reading any reviews, not knowing anything about it, not like I haven't heard anything about that book. And I just found this. It was like right at the front of the store, Barnes & Noble. It sounds cute. And for some reason, like the little dad on there that like they're in the boat and he's falling off is so funny to me. I don't know why, but I'm excited to read this. Probably more in the summertime I'll read this. Okay, so that's everything I got at Barnes & Noble. Let's go ahead and talk about all the books I picked up at my local small independent owned bookstore. The first book that I picked up is You're the Only One I've Told, The Stories Behind Abortion by Dr. Mira Shah. This is exactly what it sounds like, but I'll read the description a little bit for you. It's a nonfiction. It says, for a long time when people asked Dr. Mira Shah what she did, she would tell them that she was a doctor and leave it at that. But over the last few years, Shah decided it was time to be direct. I'm an abortion provider, she will now say. And an interesting thing started to happen each time she met someone new. One by one, people would confide at barbecues, at jury duty, in the middle of the greeting card aisle at Target that in fact they've had an abortion themselves. And their frame was often the same: you're the only one I've told. This book collects these stories as they've been told to Shaw to humanize abortion and to combat myths that persist in the discourse that surrounds it, an intentionally wide range of ages, races, socioeconomic factors, and experiences show that abortion always occurs in a unique context. Obviously, this sounds like it's going to be kind of like an emotional book. I've heard a couple booktubers talk about this, I think when it came out, singing the praises of this book, and I feel like this will be an emotional read. One, just because of the context of the story, but two, also because in America, Roe v. Wade was overturned by the Supreme Court. And so, you know, it's tough out there being a girl in this day and age. So I don't know if this will restore my faith in humanity or not, but it just seems like an important read overall. Next, another nonfiction is A People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn. I don't know if this is known on my channel. I don't know if I've talked about this, but I love history, more specifically US history. I mean, I love just history in general, but I think like my specific niche that I find interesting is US history and like how America got established. And I like the actual history, not like what the US education system gives to us. I want to actually hear the stories from all different perspectives, and that's what this book is about. So this is described as the only volume to tell America's story from the point of view of America's women, factory workers, African Americans, Native Americans, the working poor, and immigrant laborers. Howard Zinn is a historian and fights for fair wages, and he shows many of how the country's greatest battles, like fighting for fair wages, 8-hour workdays, child labor laws, health and safety standards, universal suffrage, women's rights, racial equality, were all carried out at the grassroots level against bloody resistance. So if you're not in America, a lot of the American education system is very whitewash and very much like singing the praises of white people, even though como se dice, that's not entirely the whole story. A lot of the things that carry out history nowadays that we see, like me and my husband were talking about this the other day, we were like, all the things that like make life convenient were all invented by women, because women were the ones that were having to do all this stuff. So it's kind of like, you know, you don't learn about that stuff in US history classes, you know, in high school. So I'm always interested in learning more and more about it. And I learned more about that when I was getting my college degree. I do have a history degree. I'm not putting that to work, obviously. I'm a freaking YouTuber, but I do like, that's kind of like what sparked my intrigue, because I am not a white man. So in history classes, it was kind of hard for me to relate to history. I didn't take it seriously. I did find it kind of interesting because my interest in books and I guess just like media in general has always been what got someone to a certain point, you know, like what makes them tick? Why do they think the way that they think? Like what is the background that led a person to make the decisions that they're making, whatever. And that's basically what history is, right? History is exactly what I just described. So when I got to college, I got more interested in kind of feeding that, I don't know, plant, I guess, that seed that was planted in my brain in high school. And I learned so much. And most importantly, I learned just like how effed up the US education system can be in terms of like kind of censoring what actually happened. So then I just did a whole deep dive into like trying to figure out like the truth, or like the whole truth, I guess. I don't want just part of it. And, you know, again, it was hard for me to relate because I'm not white and I'm not a man. So I was like, I don't really understand. Like, what were like my Mexican girlies out there like doing nothing? Like, no, they were doing something. Like shit was going down. So anyways, long story short, this seems like a book I will really enjoy. It is a thickie, but I don't really know when this will end. Okay, so it turns out this author died in 2010. So oh my God, there's a whole lot more to be said that happened after 2010. So, you know, I'm excited for that. It will be a very interesting read. And this is, like I said, one of the things where I'm like, I'm glad I bought this book because I feel like I'm going to annotate the heck out of it and take notes about it. Okay, next I got kind of a popular, well, not kind of, a very popular book that is everywhere and you can't escape it. And that is Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. Now, just like everybody else, I read all the Hunger Games books when they came out and watched the movie. Like, I remember staying up and Zoom reading Mockingjay because I was going to the premiere of it that night. And it was like minutes before we had to leave. And I was like, I'm almost done reading the book because I wanted to read the books first before watching the movie. So I have a special, like, it has a special place in my heart as it does for most people. And Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes came out like 2 or 3 years ago, and I just was never interested because I don't care about President Snow. His whole story, it seems very like political because he didn't even compete in the Hunger Games. So I'm like, who cares, you know? But this one, if you guys don't know, is, I think it's 25 years before the first Hunger Game book is taken place. And this is about Haymitch when he was in the Hunger Games and competed. And just reading the description of this, it is also the, oh, they gave me a little, they will not use my tears for their entertainment. Oh my God. I'm gonna cry. I can't believe like this just came out March 18th and I just got it. That's crazy. Anyways, but the description of this, if you know, if you already know kind of like the lore of Hunger Games, the stuff I'm saying will make sense. If you don't know the lore, that's okay. Just follow along with me as I read this description because so Haymitch competed in the 50th annual Hunger Games, and in honor of the Quarter Quell, they pick twice as many tributes to compete in the Hunger Games. So usually it's a boy and a girl from every district. There's 12 districts, so there's 24 people. But in honor of it being the 50th Hunger Games, they take twice as many, so there's freaking 48 people. The idea of that is crazy to me. Like, holy shit. So 2 guys and 2 girls. I'm sorry, but like the idea of this, of the Hunger Games, is so fucking wild to me. Even like, how is that a YA, a young adult book? How did I read that? The first movie came out in 2012. I read that when I was 12. How the fuck did I read that when I was 12? Talking about freaking war and like child labor and like kids killing kids. Like, that is crazy that I read that when I was 12 years old. I'm glad to be reading this as an adult because, you know, I feel like I would not be able to read this when I was so young. And even when this came out, I was like, okay, like, come on, another Hunger Games book, who cares? But I love Haymitch, even as a character, because he's kind of like me vibes, where he's just like so over everything and he's like, fuck the system. But also, I love Woody Harrelson, who is like the perfect person to play Haymitch in the Hunger Games movies. I'm so curious because this book just came out and they're already like, the movie's gonna be out next year. So I'm so curious to see who they cast as young Haymitch, because Woody Harrelson is the perfect person to play Haymitch, at least when he's older in the Hunger Games, when he's like 40. But this idea sounds crazy, and I just watched a podcast, Books Unbound, where one of the hosts just finished reading this and said it was 5 stars, so good. And she's kind of like me, where she wasn't super interested in reading Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. That gives me a little bit more hope that I'll like this book. Next, I have kind of a funny story about this book that I got, but I got this book at my local bookstore and I was really excited about it. I get off of work the next day, literally the next day, and I go to a different, like a used bookstore that's in a different city. And I go there and I see the book that I just bought. It's brand new too. It's at a used bookstore. So I'm like, 1, someone donated this. That's crazy because this book is very new. And 2, I just spent like full price, if not maybe a little more, to freaking buy this book. I mean, I didn't regret it, but I was kind of like, I could have gotten it cheaper. Like, what are the odds that I see at this bookstore? It was like at my used bookstore for $8 compared to $29 is what I paid. So I went back to my local bookstore literally this morning and exchanged this book. But this is the book that I found at my used bookstore, and that is All Fours by Miranda July. I know nothing about Miranda July, but people sing the praises of her all the time on BookTube. I don't know who she is, and I feel kind of bad for saying that because apparently this is her first book in like a decade. Every time, like, I watch Sean McCombs, and he is so funny. I love his videos. He's one of my favorite booktubers, if not my favorite booktuber, but he was talking about this book. He's going to read it for his book club on Patreon, which I'll probably join in because I've been really wanting to read this book because people have been saying like, oh my God, I'm so excited to see what craziness Miranda July writes about. And I'm like, what makes her so crazy? Like, I'm so curious because I love reading effed up, weird, crazy shit. And so I'm like, if that's what Miss July is all about, I want to read it and I want to own the book. So as far as I'm concerned, this is about a semi-famous artist announces her plan to drive cross-country from Los Angeles to New York City. 30 minutes after leaving her husband and child at home, she spontaneously exits the freeway and checks into a nondescript hotel and immerses herself in an entirely different journey. So that's all that is described, but I just heard so many great things about it. Jack Edwards also said that this was like one of his favorite books of 2024. It's about time that I finally read this. I've been seeing it, and every time I go to the bookstore, I eye it, and I'm like, oh, maybe I should read that. I don't know. And I'm like, you know what? It was a sign. Seeing it for $8 at my local used bookstore was a sign to finally get this. But since I got it from my other bookstore, like at full price, I went back and exchanged that book for something else literally this morning. So I went back and I got 1984 by George Orwell. I somehow, 1, don't own this book already, and 2, have never read this book, which is very surprising considering 1, I love classics, and 2, I love Big Brother. It is like my favorite show of all time. time, which is kind of inspired by 1984. I mean, they can't really say it for legal reasons, but I know Big Brother is watching you, Big Brother, The Eye, whatever. That is all the show Big Brother's marketing and brand, I guess. So it's kind of like dystopian, but like now, I guess we are living in dystopian, I guess. I don't know. But the concept for this alone just is crazy to me. And again, I never had to read this in high school. It's funny because in high school, I was always in like AP English or honors English or whatever the fuck. I did kind of like the books that we were reading, but a lot of the typical required reading that people are assigned in high school or whatever would be like 1984 or Animal Farm or whatever. All those like cool, fun books that I'm interested in reading now were not assigned for honors in AP English. You know what we got assigned? Fucking The Crucible. Like, I want to read The Crucible. Oedipus Rex. Like, I literally had to read Oedipus Rex as like a 16-year-old. I'm like, what the heck? Like, why can't we also read the fun, kooky things like 1984 and Animal Farm, but discuss it more in depth than like, say, your typical English class? Why can't our assignments just be a little different and we can still read the fun, kooky stuff? We be reading Shakespeare. We had a whole like Shakespeare, not semester, but like quarter, I guess. I don't know. That was just a lot. The Scarlet Letter, like, oh my gosh. No tea, no shade, but that stuff was so boring. And I just wish that we read more like interesting stuff. We read some old-timey shit. Some very old-timey shit. The only things that I really like grasped and was like, this is good, was To Kill a Mockingbird, and which is not in my honors class. I read that in the 1 year I didn't take an honors class. And Death of a Salesman, which is a short play. Those were like the two things that I picked up and was like, this shit slaps. But yeah, that is everything that I got from the bookstores. I'm really excited to read all of these. Let me know if you're interested in reading any of these as well. Part of me always wants to do a book club, but I just don't have enough patrons to justify that or followers to justify that. So maybe one day I'll just do like a free one because I don't really care about like getting money from a book club. Like, I do like the idea of a book club, especially like these booktubers that are reading books that I'm interested in, like the all fours, but I'm like, reading is free and accessible. Like, why do I also have to pay to read it with other people? I don't want to pay to be part of a community, you know? Like, I just don't like the idea of that. I wish I could just read it with you guys for free. So I might do something like that and try to figure out a way to do that and get a free book club going for anybody that wants to join, I guess, because I wouldn't feel right charging you guys for it, because it's like, I talk about going to the library and making reading free and accessible as it possibly can be, and charging you guys for a book club to read it with me doesn't really sound like it's on brand for me. So let me know if you would be interested in that. Let me know if you'd be interested in that. I want to give a huge shout out to all of my Patreon members, every single one of you. I'm honestly just so grateful to have each and every one of you. YouTube don't be giving me a lot of money. It takes me like 5 months to meet the threshold. So, you know, this Patreon is really the way that I'm like keeping the lights on here. So if you're interested in that, link for that will be in the description below. But thank you guys for coming along with me on this journey. Make sure to stay tuned for more book videos. I'm going to be filming a reading update right after this, so stay tuned for that to see what books I've been reading lately. But thank you guys for coming along with me on this journey. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all of that jazz. And as always, thanks for watching.